Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on Mimime for Info. We are coming to you live from Geneva, Switzerland, where the United Nations committee that is reviewing the cases of torture in Cameroon just ended its session. It was a groundbreaking one because a lot of things happened, a lot of things were said here today. And we know that Cameroonians have been waiting in anticipation to know exactly what was said, what was discussed. You can see me coming just very informally because the session just ended and we are still around the hall here. So please do not expect very powerful or the perfect video quality. We are just here to give you like updates on what happened here today. So welcome everyone to today's discussion on the recent UN committee session on human rights issues in Cameroon. Today we are going to be exploring some of the claims that were met by Cameroonian authorities. We heard so many officials here representing the government. None of them were ministers. None of them were police authorities in Cameroon, particularly those who are being accused of torture, violence on a daily basis in the country. And that's some of the questions that some of the experts here were raising. But I'm not going to be having this discussion tonight alone. I'm having some actors of the civil society and one of the rapporteurs, the UN rapporteurs, who is based in Africa. They are here present and they'll be introducing themselves. Hello, Barrister.
Oh, yeah. Hey, how are you?
Our audience, thank you so much. Our audience is watching. Can you introduce yourself again because not everybody knows who you are?
Barrister Felix Abala. I'm the president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. I was here to do a private presentation on the situation of torture in Cameroon, invited by the OMCT. And for the past 2 days, we've been following up the presentation from the state of Cameroon in a public hearing that I'm sure that our brothers and sisters in Cameroon also had the opportunity to listen and watch what the representatives of Cameroon were saying with regards to torture.
So this discussion, I will not just be with Barrister Abala alone. I also have another Cameroonian here, but it's under a different capacity. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell Cameroonians who you are?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mimi. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm Isidore Ngele. I am the head of the Africa desk at the World Organization Against Torture. I'm based here in Geneva. My role is to facilitate the participation of civil society of African states to the works of the United Nations Committee Against Torture when their state is being reviewed. So it was my role to support CSOs like the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa to document torture cases in Cameroon, to prepare a report, to submit it to the Committee Against Torture, and to come here in Geneva to attend and also interact with the committee members when Cameroon is also sharing its own appreciation of the occurrence of torture in their country. Yeah.
So I'll begin with Barrister Abala. The Cameroon delegation actually said here very clearly that there's no state-sanctioned torture in Cameroon. That the government of Cameroon, President Paul Biya and his government, do not actually order for people to be tortured, even though there are a few cases, but they are not state-sanctioned. What do you have to say about that?
The fact is that torture is being committed in Cameroon, okay? True that it might be difficult to prove that there is state-sponsored torture. But we have seen evidence where you document that a lot of the people who are tortured are those who have criticized the state, are those who have done things that the state doesn't like. So there is a pattern which is widespread and systematic and systemic that would lead to the conclusion that those in the chain of command are aware of what is happening. You know, you don't need to be living in space to understand that. I mean, the Wazizi case, the Lunge case, the Jacob Che and the others, you know, what happened in Gabu shows that there is a pattern. And in cases where there's even an investigation, you see how the process is slowed. Means that somebody in the higher chain of command has an interest that these survivors don't have
like
justice.
The case of Martinez
for clearly,
Samuel Wazizi.
So it's difficult to say that the state is aware of that torture is happening. What is the state doing to prevent it, to create an enabling environment? What is it doing to bring to justice these violators? That's a problem. If the state cannot and is unwilling to investigate or to bring these violators to book, then the state in a way is liable and is culpable for the torture which is being committed on innocent citizens by the military, be they the gendarmerie, Semil, the B, or the police.
So what do you have to say about the fact that more often than not, the police and gendarmerie officials are at the center of this torture, yet the government delegation that was here said that there is no state sanctioned torture in Cameroon? Does that actually really make sense?
Maybe, and I hope I will not bother your viewers. We have three ways of assessing how a state might be involved in the practice of torture. The practice of torture can be anecdotic, like isolated cases, which means the people, the officials, are doing it without having instructions from their hierarchy. And this is what the Cameroonian state claims. The second step is that there is a generalization. So people are doing it on their own, but this is widespread. And you can have a number of cases that are numerous, and it gives the feeling that this is tolerated. And then you have the last step, which is systematic. It means there is a system that is put in place, that there are laws, there are policies, unspoken policies or written policies, depends. So it is, I think we might just exclude the first one, which is what the Cameroonian government or delegation said here, that there is not sponsored. We just exclude the fact that this is isolated, this is anecdotal, that people are doing it on their behalf, but this is not. We just exclude, and we're left with two other elements: the generalization of the practice or the systematic practice. And to be able to know that we cannot, as Barrister said, prove that there are others. And even there is, like the directives of the Ministry of Defense, for example, prohibiting and also even instructing to military to not torture. So we cannot say that there is a written policy or that is public policy to torture. In the same time, we see that it is generalized and that it is tolerated, and I will even push to say it is encouraged, because when nothing is done, it gives the feeling that we like it and you will have a reward if you do it. And we've seen people being appointed despite doing that. We have seen people being publicly accused and nothing has happened to them. They've remained in power, in position. It means that we are in a between of the generalization of torture and a systematic practice of torture. We see also in our work, we try to see who are the people involved. And we will see that the people who are involved and tolerated are the people holding the power first in specialized units. When a state creates a special unit, it means there is a will to deal with something. If you see Semil, for example, it has been created in 2001 with the aim to control the discipline in the military, so in the body. It has nothing to do external of the corps, of the soldiers. But when you see them being involved in all the cases, and my organization has documented and submitted to the Committee Against Torture tens of cases, so we have like 80 cases, where military, the Semil, so the military security, are involved, it means that this is at least tolerated, but also encouraged. How can you explain that a body that was created for a specific competence is being involved in something other, like maintaining order, like investigating journalists, interviews, bloggers, etc.? It means that this is something you appreciate at least. We've seen that most of these people are acting in extrajudicial settings, which means when they arrest someone, for example, when they arrest you, it's without warrant. It doesn't obey to what the criminal procedural code has said, which means that within 48 hours you should have access to a lawyer, for example, that you can have access to a medical doctor, that you have to be presented to a judge, a prosecutor. So when you're spending, in one of the cases we've supported before the CAT, a victim who is an Anglophone citizen was arrested by Semil soldiers, was maintained 31 days in military barracks in Southwest, in Limbe, in the B, in Tole camp. You see that this guy was not presented to a judge, has never met a doctor, and has been tortured in that place.
But we could hear the government officials today saying that in detention centers or correctional services, there are clinics, there are pharmacies, there are trained medical personnel to take care of people who are injured, those who are victims of torture.
So this is clearly what I'm saying.
You're describing something completely different.
Because what we have, and that's the report we've published, unfortunately only in French for the moment, that in Cameroon there is two systems. So the title of our report is One State, Two System. So there is a formal system where all of this is available, and there is an extrajudicial system. That's what I was explaining. So when a person is arrested, this person is not brought in the judicial chain. You know, you're not brought to a police custody. You're brought to semi settings. This is not an official place for deprivation of liberty. You're not presented to a prosecutor, so you will never access or enjoy all of these rights that are even encoded in the criminal code, procedural code. That's why, in the one hand, they are presenting what is written in the law, and that is happening in the practice for certain people. And the second hand, there are certain other people who are exempted from all of this, and these people, this is what Barrister was saying, these are people who are accused of terrorism, these are people who are arrested for their political views, and they don't deserve and they don't enjoy the protection
that kind of treatment. Yeah. So I'd have one final question to Barrister Abala. The Anglophone crisis was also mentioned during the discussion, and we could hear the Cameroon delegation saying that the conflict is over, that there's nothing in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. And we heard them even saying that it's at the final stage, and that it's not a war between Anglophones and Francophones, and that there's absolutely nothing going on in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. What do you have to say about that as a human rights lawyer who's been documenting and following up some of these cases?
Well, the first thing is that was out of it was supposed to be out of the discussion that we had here in, I don't know why he was focused on the crisis and making political statements that I don't think he has the capacity to do. The first thing that he said that I'm okay, the crisis has never been between Anglophones and Francophones. I mean, we don't have problems with each other, but it's about Anglophones and the state in its entirety. And with regards to the fact that the crisis has come to an end, no, I mean, if you live in the southwest or the northwest, if you live in Cameroon, if you follow what is happening, you would tell that things are still very dicey, you know. It has not come to an end. We still have people who are being killed. Schools are doing better, but not to the maximum as we used to have prior to the crisis. We still have lockdowns. We still have incidences where people are unlawful arrest and illegal detention. People are killed, you know. So there is still tension. I mean, physical and psychological tension. And to me, I don't want that to be considered as an escape route not to address the root causes. Because when you start saying that the crisis is at the verge of coming to an end, you are telling us that you guys don't have any responsibility to try to find a solution. Mm-hmm. But I still believe that there's a need to address some of the fundamental issues so that at least if the crisis comes to an end, because of the fact that the issues have been addressed and resolved, we don't expect that in future we would have another crisis again. But as we go through this phase, human rights violations, gross and systematic, is still taking place every day. Torture is taking place, and I was a bit stunned when one of them, they're talking about the fact that they don't have secret detention centers in Cameroon. We know that there was one around the Tole area where Mr. Chair Jacob, you know, the ones that Wazizi and Co died there. It's clearly, I mean, they were held incommunicado. Nobody knew where they were held, you know. This was not, and I think also it's good for your fans, Cameroonians, to understand that this was not a trial of the state of Cameroon. They weren't trying the state of Cameroon. Yeah. It was more of Cameroon's obligation under the CAT that Cameroon has signed and ratified to create an enabling environment. What are they doing to ensure that this treaty that they signed and ratified, that they are actually respecting the terms of the treaty to basically that's what happens. And true that government has put certain measures in place, okay? But there is still much that has to be done.
So after this session, are you positive that things would, what are your thoughts about like moving forward?
No,
I'm
not very positive. This government always, there's need for continuous engagement with them, with civil societies, other stakeholders, the CAT itself. Because if you see some of the things that they cited, Cameroon has been told, for example, you look at when the representative of the Minister of Justice was saying that there is no law that talks about not to try civilians in the military court, for example. We have the 1999 jurisprudence of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights that clearly says that civilians should not be tried in a military court. We have other from the General Assembly, other things that can be used, but because the state has to be continuously engaged. You know, they speak in a lot of generalities, but specific things. We are not talking about the laws, but we're talking about how do you implement some of these things. And to me, that's a problem with Cameroon. Cameroon has beautiful laws on paper, but implementing the laws, that's a problem. So we also have to engage government to ensure that the implementation of these laws, the recommendations that will come out from here, that government would follow. And I think that civil society has to create a small monitoring team, kind of a watchdog, so to identify all what would be the recommendations and see how they would be implemented, not only for CAT, but the universal periodic reviews also. We have recommendations that till date they've not been implemented. So we are hoping that something positive, because it helps the image of the country also to show that they respect international norms, that they are part of the Committee of Nations by not being considered a pariah state, by a state that is the ambassador was reminding us that Cameroon is a state of law. Yes, it's good for him to say Cameroon is a state of law. We just hope that they would respect the recommendations of CAT.
So just final words before we go. I just wanted to ask you about the state of affairs in Cameroon at the moment. You work with the United Nations. After this session, what next? Because that's the question the minds of many Cameroonians are asking. Will there be positive results? Are we going to see some changes? What do you have to say to some of those who are watching back home? It was not only a session on Cameroon. We had also countries like Namibia and other countries in some parts of the world. What next after sessions like this?
First, I don't work with the United Nations. I work with an international organization that is in charge of preventing and fighting torture. I think this is a right question, and it might be boring for those not doing international law, because
maybe just break it down and then
that's the thing.
Yes,
there is no something let's say compulsory that will come. That's the thing. The system is based on dialogue. It's to push the states to take engagement. And for the majority of these cases, Cameroonian government did never take a public stand. So we had, for the first time in some of these cases, their public position. And this is something we are holding them on now to get them accountable for. For example, they promised that they will ratify the optional protocol, which is an instrument that ensures that you're going to do everything to prevent torture to happen, because that's the first thing. Torture should not even happen. So now they said they are going to do that. We're going to follow that to get. They said they were going to investigate cases. So they have taken engagement on in many cases here. They have explained themselves on many cases. They have spoken about the case of Martinez Zogo, of Samuel Wazizi, etc., Sebastien Abala. So we have now the grounds for us, for example, to even start litigation against them, because we know now what happened. For long we didn't know even what happened concretely in some of these cases. So it is a ground for the other actors now to jump in, for NGOs like me, for the media, for citizens, because people need to ask them. Elections are coming next year. They will be promising things. What are you going to vote? Are you going to vote on people promising you things that the international body said they are not doing? That's the ground. So there is no miracle in international law. It's not something that will come from Geneva to fix the situation. It's for the people in Cameroon now to get aware of what has been said there, to know that overall the situation is not good. That's what the committee observed, that there are a lot of loopholes. So next year when you're going to vote, you should know. I'm speaking to the supporters of people who are in charge today. You're going to reconduct your support to them based on what? That's the questions that are asked to the citizen of Cameroon.
Yeah, very, very pertinent questions. That's why we had to have this discussion just after the session so that Cameroonians who are back home can understand what the stakes are, what are the implications of the session that is actually holding. For some of those who are asking where are we and what is happening, this is actually, we are coming to you live from Geneva in Switzerland, and we are going to do a longer video because we had the opportunity to talk to a victim. It's a heart-wrenching story that will tell you in just a couple of hours from now. You will be shocked at how much torture, the rate of torture that some Cameroonians have been through and what they continue to face now at the hands of some government officials. So I'm also here with Joseph Isama, who is a member of the MMI team. He's part of the French team.
Everyone.
Joseph. So maybe you can just talk briefly 1 minute in French to our French audience, why we are here and what has happened before we go.
Nous sommes là à la fin de la session, la 81e session du comité de lutte contre la torture qui s'est tenue ici à Genève. Alors, les travaux se sont achevés il y a quelques minutes et puis l'État du Cameroun a pris la parole, notamment l'ambassadeur permanent du Cameroun auprès des Nations Unies, qui a expliqué et répondu aux questions auxquelles qui lui ont été posées. Il a notamment parlé des cas de la torture. L'ambassadeur a dit que l'État du Cameroun était un État de droit et que la torture n'était pas systématique au Cameroun. L'ambassadeur a également évoqué les cas sur les violences conjugales, les violences basées sur le genre et d'autres cas notamment qui ont fait la une des médias a été évoquée. Oui, le cas Longuet, Paul Chouta, Samuel Ouazizi. Sur le cas de Paul Chouta, les autorités ont indiqué que ces agresseurs sont en train d'être recherchés par une enquête qui a été ouverte. Et puis, sur le cas Ouazizi, les autorités ont clairement affirmé que le dossier avait été classé. Et sur plusieurs autres cas,
ce qu'on ne savait pas ouvertement ou publiquement, il y avait la famille Ouazizi, la famille de Ouazizi, ses collègues qui posaient beaucoup de questions sur qu'est-ce qui se passe avec la situation de Ouazizi. On n'avait pas de réponse, mais aujourd'hui, on a entendu que le dossier a été classé.
Oui, l'État a donné une réponse claire que le dossier a été classé. Une autre question aussi qui a été évoquée, c'est celle des LGBT. L'État a clairement donné sa position en disant que c'est une question qui ne cadre pas avec les valeurs morales du Cameroun. C'est en gros ce qui a été dit au cours de cette session et les experts du comité contre la torture ont appelé l'État du Cameroun à respecter certaines clauses de la Convention qui, selon elles, ne sont pas encore respectées et l'État du Cameroun a pris certains engagements pour le respect de ces clauses.
Oui, on va en parler plus dans une vidéo.
Oui, dans un documentaire.
On a parlé à une victime de la torture qui est ici. C'était vraiment une interview très difficile quand on faisait cette interview, mais notre auditeur aura la possibilité de voir.
Oui, exactement. On va publier cette interview et on va également publier un documentaire qu'on va produire sur tout ce qui s'est passé lors de cette session avec des intervenants, que ce soit du côté du Cameroun et du côté des Nations Unies et du côté du comité contre la torture.
So this is Joseph Isama, a member of FMI team. He came all the way from Sweden, and I came from Bonn, Germany, where I currently work. Thank you so much for watching. We'll keep you updated and stay blessed. Bye.